Well, A Midsummer Night's Dream is beautiful. It's such a beautiful retelling of it. It was significant for me because it was one of the first shows of any sort that I saw, and I remember so vividly Puck coming down from the upside down from the ceiling. You know, if these spirits have offended, all that stuff. You know,
bravo.
Think but this, and all is
mended.
And
we all from our childhood. I think it was the first play I ever saw. Saw it here in Canada at the
really?
Strap. Yes, and I was the first play I played Hermia when I was 7.
Wow. So this has resonance for you. Then.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's the great Shakespeare for young audiences, right. Because it's. Did you get the behind the scenes thing that he sent you? Did he give you?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, if you haven't looked at it, there's the most adorable end. It's 15 minutes,
right.
But the last little girl at the end is so cute. She was in it, and she's talking about love. How confusing love is. And I enjoyed working with these 17 kids because watching them every day, and they were in 80 performances, 8 shows a week after school. We had no understudies. So they would come, and watching them learn about love, cynical love, drugs, humor, Shakespeare, and how to work together was part of the most exciting. It was one of the most exciting parts of doing the production.
Well, I mean, there's so many facets to it. I mean, I hadn't realized that. Just the beauty of sitting back and just watching this. And I love the handheld camera work because so often when you see Shakespeare presented on stage, it's staid and it's very, and this really I thought that really brought it alive. That and the mechanicals who were speaking with their Brooklynese accents and the whole thing. You know, it for me makes the show, which is already, I think, probably one of the most accessible of
accessible,
even more so accessible. And on the big screen, the handheld camera work really brought it to life for me.
I'm so excited. I haven't seen it with an audience. We saw it with one preview. We were still finishing it, and it was all out of sync. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm so excited to see it today. I mean, I'm thrilled. It's a nice print, I think.
It's a beautiful print. Yeah. It's a beautiful print, or what I saw.
Whatever, DCP,
yeah.
They don't do prints anymore.
We're so old now. That's the thing, right? The DCP. So, tell me a little bit about revitalizing something like this. I mean, Tuts Andronicus, of course. I mean, you've got a long history with looking at Shakespeare and doing something with it, turning it on its head a little bit. Why this one? Why now?
Well, this is a two-part because I inaugurated a new theater in Brooklyn, Theater for New Audience, with this show. And I had done, 2 years ago exactly, I had done readings of about 4 or 5 Shakespeare trying to decide when I was offered to open the new theater. Right. This is the company, Theater for New Audience, that I've worked with for 35 years. I did actually designed Midsummer Night's Dream for somebody else 15 years or 20 years ago. But then I directed Tuts Andronicus, Taming of the Shrew, The Tempest 3 times, and now this, and Green Bird, a non-Shakespeare. So it was an honor to open the theater. I did everything from readings of, maybe Macbeth and some really dark things. And I thought, you know what, this is a celebration. And Midsummer Night's Dream was made for a wedding. At least that's what we're told. Don't you love that you're going to do this play and have everybody fall apart? You've got I think it's genius. The one night before you're getting married, all your worst nightmares will happen. Right. You'll fall out of love, you'll get drugged, you'll fall in love with somebody else, you'll fall apart, everything goes wrong. But ultimately it goes right. And this is such a blessing for a wedding that I thought, this is how you bless a new theater. You make that marriage between the audience and the actors, the audience and the artists. So, and it has been, I think at the New Amsterdam where we did Lion King, ironically, when that theater was being renovated by Disney, didn't know them. I actually went to them and said, I'm interested, because it had been restored originally, or made originally. The first show was A Midsummer Night's Dream, excuse my English, but Midsummer Night's Dream, 1920s and 30s. So I went to Disney, I said, could I do A Midsummer Night's Dream here? They said, no, but would you do The Lion King? Wow. So it's a very funny, twisted, it does. And I had really, after that, I had avoided, many people said, why don't you do Dream? And I said, oh, it's almost too perfect in a way. You know what I mean? Oh God, visual, fairies.
Well, it's the most fantastical looking of all the plays.
I think you're right. So I avoided it, and I finally said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to crack the nut of what is that magical fairy world. How am I going to do that? And I really didn't want to do the sort of, it's not that it's obligatory, but what people would expect, which is puppets. So I went deeply into what are the two worlds. It's really nature versus nurture. It's really nature versus control and rules. Because what is a marriage but a set of rules, of codifying love and contracts? So all that beautiful first love that is from 12 or 13, the Romeo and Juliet, Pyramus and Thisbe, all of a sudden is, a girl is going to die in almost the first scene in the play if she doesn't marry her father's choice. That's a great way to start a comedy.
The old Athenian
law. So I thought, I'm going to do the fairies with children. Not that that's a new concept, but I'm not going to do fairies with wings and cute little tutus, even though no one does that anymore. I want raw. I call them the rude elementals, because you've got the rude mechanicals. What I wanted is prepubescent children who are before the rules come in. And they will not just be the fairy world, but they will be the forest. Because on a bare stage, you know, what you saw here, you've got audience wrapping around three sides. And
very close.
Oh my God.
Film, you see, it almost looks at one point, there was a few people I noticed with, you can see their playbills.
Yes. Definitely. And they felt the fabric that was going, which you don't get in cinema, but you get many other things. So I wanted the children's energy, wild. That's why I wanted 100. I wanted that, that feeling of danger and anarchy. And they were almost Puck's posse. They were the ones manipulating, tormenting, torturing the lovers, creating the forest. Because how do you move this unless you're in a real forest out there where you move from one location to another? On the stage, you have to create the artifice. So the children were great because they transformed, and ultimately they became the children of the court with their little white dresses, and that worked. And then having Catherine Hunter, who I think is exactly.
I was not familiar with her, and I was transfixed by her, and the androgyny of it, which I think is Puck anyway, but the androgyny of her performance, the leg sticking straight up, the unusual, just the sheer, the thing with her arm, right? And just the sheer unusual power of that. But she's not doing anything that's like weird. The thing that I loved about it, was like it just felt to me like, well, this is what this is what Puck does.
Yeah.
Puck's not trying to freak you out right now. This is just what Puck does. Puts the arm up or does the leg straight every time. But it seemed graceful and natural and like it was meant to be. And that was the thing about that performance that kind of blew my mind, is how you can be that odd and yet seem that natural.
And so human.
And
so emotional. Mm-hmm. Did you see the behind-the-scene things?
Oh, man.
Did you see the little 15-minute?
No.
You have it, right?
I have it, but I don't.
Now you'll like it, because, you would have liked it, but now you'll get it, because you're gonna hear about their improvisation. David Harewood and Catherine. She had a brilliant idea. I'm going to let you watch that, but watch that because it really, they talk. I have the four, Max, Tina Benko, they all talk about their parts. I talk a lot about the play, so if you miss something here. And the children talk. But I think Catherine is the greatest actor, really, for me on the stage right now. She has played King Lear. She's the only female in London.
Is that?
Yeah, she played King Lear. She's in New York right now, opening a Peter Brook play at Theatre for New Audience.
Is she?
She's not. It's opening this week. I forgot what it's called, but you'll look it up. It's opening this week.
Yeah.
It was in London. It's coming to New York. Right now, today, reason she's not here is she has a play she directed in London opening today. Wow. So she's not a movie actress because no one has figured it out yet. I'm like going, okay, what can I do? What can I figure out? Because
the only movie credit is
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter movies, right?
Because she's this strange creature.
Yeah.
But the woman is the most versatile. I'd seen her in 5 or 6 shows, and year before I did this, I said, Jeffrey, if I could get Catherine Hunter to play Puck, I'll do it. Because for a director, the fairies and Puck are the biggest question marks. How are you going to create that world? The mechanicals, doing them local, New York. If you were in England, they would be local, Hampstead or Liverpool or what. You know, you'd naturally want to make them familiar, because mostly clowns in Shakespeare, the jesters, the clowns, the tricksters, they are the ones who are the closest to the audience.
Right.
You know, they're the groundlings get them.
Right.
So that was, when I did a reading of it, Max Casella was reading Bottom, and he was reading it not with a thick accent, and none of them were. And at the intermission of our reading, there was nobody there. It was just me to hear the play. I said, you know, guys, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Queens. Please, you might be from Ireland, but do your Queens accent, do your Bronx, do your Brooklyn, and the whole thing came alive, because I think Shakespeare intended it in his day to have that local sound. You know?
Do you think that a lot of directors are too precious with the material? I mean, we see reimaginings, all that. It was Shakespeare in modern dress.
Right.
Kevin Spacey did King Lear recently.
Richard III, yeah.
Richard III.
Right.
And, you know, that's it. But I do find that and not those particular productions I'm speaking of, but often we're a little too precious with this material, as though it's not a living thing, as though it's a document from.
I think people think that, and that's what frightens them from. They're frightened of that, and they're frightened that the language will be too hard. But why I think film is so great for Shakespeare, the difference between, you would enjoy it in live theater. The kids who came loved it, because it was the pillow fights, theatrical stripping, you know, not just that. They got it. But on film, you have close-ups. So now you're actually, this is where film is better than the theater. I put the cameras with 4 days shooting, 4 live, and the 4 day time of shooting pickups and handheld and Steadicam. You now are in all the best positions in the house, 70 hours worth. And then I edited like a normal movie. A lot of those National Theater Lives and all of those, they don't, because they're live, they don't have the kind of time to work it. There's no visual effects in the movie, not a one. It's all live. It's all done from the production. But we're in positions that no audience could be. So now you're getting the support of the close-up, which means you can understand it when you see the facial expression and the lips moving. You don't need to know what the word is. I found that in Titus. I still don't know what a weeping welcon is, but when Anthony Hopkins says it, I get it. You could turn even in this movie, you could turn off the dialogue and you would know what's going on. That's that visual, physical, that's the other side of it. If you have talking heads, just talking Shakespeare on a bare stage, it's fine, but you are demanding the audience to really, you know, in live theater, to really, really work hard. And I think with film, you get, the Orson Welles movies are extraordinary. His Othello, unbelievable. It's great.
And not dated. That's
not at all. Well, Shakespeare doesn't date. Why doesn't Shakespeare date? Because he is more daring and more shocking than any contemporary writer.
Absolutely, but I think like Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet has dated. You know, I mean, the material hasn't, but
no, the style of it is. I agree with you. And probably, I think Baz Luhrmann's was wonderful, and maybe it's dated too, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
But I think that if there's a truth to it, you know, in Zeffirelli's, what hasn't dated is the beauty of Olivia Hussey. That doesn't date. Maybe a little bit of the look of it, if you get great charisma and great acting. The reason I don't update my films. I mean, even Titus is not updated. And Midsummer's a bit the same. The costumes are a blend of time. Like, look at Hermia. I love what Constance Hoffman did, but Alexander McQueen is using ruffles from Elizabethan with short. You know what I mean? It's this. I encourage my designers, if I'm not designing, that character is what you're designing for. So you have Hermia in this princessy high-waisted dress, and you have Helena in the low because she doesn't think she's that pretty, right? So the dresses and the costumes are about the character, and that doesn't date then, because we have the ability to transcend many time periods. So the same in The Tempest. It was a blend of time. You had T-shirts with jeans, but you had doublets.
Right.
And all the guys who looked at Sandy Powell's costumes for The Tempest said, I want to wear that. That's the coolest, with zippers, creating. So I prefer to approach Shakespeare's periods in that way, to find what's appropriate for the character and that particular scene. That's why he's contemporary for all time. In his day, if you looked at engravings of Tuts Andronicus, you will see pantaloons, Elizabethan pantaloons with togas.
Right, right.
And it's not a history play. He uses Greek mythology mixed with pre-Christian thought, mixed with Christianity, mixed with Elizabethan philosophy or political philosophy. So we do the same. You know, it's so human. His stories, he's done 900 screenplays. No, movies, excuse me. But he's the most prolific screenwriter of our time. And when you see the Kurosawa or the Russian, they're not in Shakespeare's language, but because his stories are so rich, they're really in the Western world, they are the foundation for everything.
Well, you mentioned 900 movie adaptations. I wonder if it was A Midsummer Night's Dream. There's one of the most famous movie credits of all time. It's written by William Shakespeare with additional dialogue by, and I can't remember, just a random name. I think it might have been the Mickey Rooney version of
Midsummer, the Max Reinhardt. Did they add language to
Apparently,
it?
Yeah.
But you know, with the groundlings, in our version, I mean, with the clowns, the rude mechanicals, there's stuff that's said there that's not, but they would have been improvised.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing, and that's what I mean about being a little too precious with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do a lot of improvisation. Catherine Hunter's improvising stuff. And also, having Puck at the top of the film, that's not in the script.
Right.
But because Puck ends it with the line that you know, if we shadows have offended, I felt that Puck had to be the bookends to it. And Puck in this version plays Philostrate or Philostrate with the glasses because, you know, you're investigating the script, and there are billions of holes in Shakespeare because they were not really written down when he did it.
Well, yeah, not meant
they were improvised. I'm sure that each actor brought their own version, and in his day and closer to his day, they cut and slashed and pasted. You know, there was not that reverence like, oh, I'm going to do the full 4 hour. This is 2 hours and 20 minutes or so, but I mean, the real play would probably take 3 or 4 hours. Titus I cut in half.
Yeah, because that's
really long.
Right, yeah.
And it was, to me, Titus was a pearl in an oyster. You know, you needed to take away some of it to actually see that pearl. It worked better, shorter. That's not saying Shakespeare didn't do his job. It's just in those days it was, let's write it, let's get it up there. And the actors made it happen. So with the clowns and the comedic actors, it is commedia. It is. They're not even in verse. You know, so you must allow these actors to improvise. Russell Brand and Alfred Molina, if you ever want to have a ball, really. Did you see The Tempest with Helen Mirren?
Yes.
Okay, did you ever see Russell's riff online?
No.
Okay, write it down, Russell's riff. It's a 3-minute improv by Russell Brand on our first rehearsal when I stuck a little camera and I said, so Mr. Brand, Mr. Trinculo, tell me about yourself. And he went on a tangent that is the most genius. It's better than Shakespeare. But he would not stray from the Shakespeare when we did the movie because he didn't want people to accuse him of not being able to do it. But it's the most. The other thing he did was something that's online called Russell Branded Shakespeare, where I interviewed him as Shakespeare, and it's thoroughly enjoyable.
I'll have a look.
He's such a smart guy, Russell.
Sharp.
Really sharp.
Yeah. We are out of time, but
okay.
I tell you, so where I started with all this. So the first time I see Midsummer Night's Dream, I'm this big,
right.
And I went to a place called the Neptune Theatre in Liverpool, in Halifax, Nova Scotia. John Neville was the artistic director because it was in the probably early 70s. British actors weren't getting the work that they once were in theatre in Britain.
They came here.
No money, and they all came here, and they went to places like Nova Scotia and Calgary and like tiny little theatres, but. You know, the government was like, my God, well, John Neville wants to come here and direct, and poured money at them. And so I saw him do Othello. I saw this towering figure of, you know, do all these amazing plays. But my memory of falling in love with
theater
was seeing Puck come down from the theater, from the roof. And it changed everything for me.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it changed everything for me, and I remember that moment. And when I saw it again in your film, but then the rope, does that thing, I was like, that's even more spectacular. If I was 10 years old today,
her pants,
zipped
right up,
so cool, right? And I was like, if I was 10 years old today, that would.
Well, we've had that. The kids. I'm very excited for kids when they see this, as well as adults. But it's for everybody, I hope. Well, thank you. Nice to meet you.